Hello, all you Warlocks out there! Welcome to Lock-a-Palooza. This brief primer for a Warlock and running around with all things Locky is brought to you by Inevitable Trail. Our guest today, our speaker today, is Kevin. A lot of you know him from the Guild.
Hello there.
And also, we have a couple of us here on the channel as well. I am Kuapi. Today, I am showing up on my Warlock, whose name is Wakanti, and obviously, since he's wearing the heirloom gear, he's not very big. So it'll be interesting as I try to attack these dummies. Also with us today is Kay, and Grid, as well as Izzy, and we also have Jakori as well. So we'll also have a lot of people in Guild Chat asking us questions, so we'll be relaying those as they come on. So without further ado, I will turn this over to Kevin.
Alrighty, so just as a first start out here, I'm going to go over what I've got on my my UI setup. As you may see to start with, I do have kind of a similar setup to what Shamai had when he was working with his bartenders. He's actually the one that gave me the idea for this kind of setup. So just as a precursor, though, you know, I do not have a lot of the complicated mods out there for using the your UIs to the best extent as that most people use. Now, if you look at that first arrow that popped up there, that's where I usually put my basic spells. They're the ones I use on all the time. And let's see here, the next arrow that should pop up here in just a moment is actually where I kind of keep all of my pet spells. And when my pet is active, there's a second bar above that, just like the hunter pets are. It just shows what's active and what's going on there as well. So looks like I'm not sharing my screen. Give me 1 second here. There we go. The next one, where the arrows are, is just kind of like my emergency tools, you know, where I have like my shields and my life regeneration rates and everything like that. And I will go over all of these spells in a little bit, just kind of giving you an idea of what's going on.
It looks good, and we do see where all the arrows are pointing.
Okay, thank you, Kay. And the last one, or the second to last one here, is just kind of utility spells that, you know, things that I don't use all the time, but they, you know, they do have their uses overall. Then on that whole section on the right-hand side of my screen is just kind of my mix and match section. You know, I have all my stuff for my consumables. I keep my health stone down there. I keep my food, and then I also keep like the utilities within the Warlocks that I don't use very often. You know, like the lock gates and the summoning portal and the health stone summon and everything like that. And then the last one that just popped up there is probably one of the ones I look for the most, even though it's right there in the middle of my screen.
Why's that?
It's the Soul Stone. It is our.
Oh, okay.
It's the big one that I'm always looking for because I've got to have it right at the click of a button, essentially. So.
So you're saying you die occasionally as a Warlock?
Yeah, every once in a while, and I have to sometimes. I also have to sometimes, you know, res, you know, a tank or two that die, you know.
And I don't know if you can see, Kevin, but look at everybody who's gathered around for Lock-a-Palooza.
Oh, they are just kind of.
Yeah, they're
hanging
waiting. They are just hanging on your every word.
All right.
So whatever you have to say next, make it extraordinary.
Very well.
Okay.
All right. Let's see here. And then the last thing for this first slide here of my UI setup is... I'm just waiting on it. One more
arrow to show up?
No, it should be the next click on there.
Okay.
There we go.
Ready?
It's just what I use for like my major add-ons. I know I spoke earlier on them, but that's basically all I use. I use Bartender for my UI. I use Recount to track my information. And then, Deadly Boss Mods to make sure I'm not standing in the fire.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it as far as what gets used on a regular basis by me. All right, so the next one I'm going to talk about is pets, because they are a big part of what we do with Warlocks. The first of which... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and from the looks of it, our people do like their pets, don't they?
Oh, yes, they do. And there are a wide assortment of them, too.
Doesn't look like we're looking at you. That our group has a lot of them out. It seems like it's the blueberry.
Yeah,
and the eye.
That is definitely one of the most popular ones right now, is the blueberry, because it is your tank. It can save you from a lot of different things.
So what pets are you going to tell us about?
I'm going to actually cover all of them, but we're going to start with the first one you get.
Okay.
And that is your imp to start with. You get him right away when you start your Warlock from scratch. He's kind of like for previous expansions, he was kind of like the bread and butter for the Warlock because he does a lot of damage. He's a caster. He has a couple of unique abilities. One that I've been experimenting a little bit with is actually is one that allows you to remove magic spells from an area of effect. So, and I believe the last time I used it was with our Thok encounter, where I could put that down and it would cleanse 3 magic effects within the area. When it was just kind of an emergency situation for that. When we were getting a little behind, I'd do that and it works. So, and just so you can see on the slide there, on the left-hand side, I do have the basic version, and then on the right-hand side, I will have the buffed-up version using one of the talents I will go over later called the Grimoire of Supremacy. And that basically just makes your pets stronger. And it changes the appearance of them in a lot of ways too. So, all right. So the second one, it's what we know as the blueberry. It is our Voidwalkers or Voidlords. As I mentioned earlier, it is a tank. It will hold aggro on a lot of different things. It'll switch between them if you have multiple targets going on, and it does have it does survive through a lot of different things where not everything else can survive too. So
yeah, and a lot of people use this for like on Timeless Isle to go ahead and when they're questing on Timeless Isle, right? If they're doing solos.
Yeah, and I actually have used just my Voidwalker to tank, like, say, Cindermaw on the top of the Timeless Isle.
Oh, yeah.
Because the way that the mechanics work with Blizzard right now is, it'll change position to avoid the things on the ground, the eruptions in the ground and everything like that. So it'll move around just to kind of avoid it, and you don't have to worry about repositioning or anything like that like you do with other kind of tanking specs. All right, so the next one we've got here is our Fell Hunter or Observer. Now these ones they run up and they're kind of a melee caster type thing, but they do have a utility in there that allows them to interrupt spells, and in PvP they can spell lock your opponents and to prevent them from casting any spells.
Okay, because I'm not seeing too many of them showing up in the raids these days.
Actually, they're the pet right now that is like the biggest damage dealer within the raid community right now. It's it's a debated topic, of course, but it's in between this and the imp for like the highest damage right now. So for raiding, I'll go back and forth between the two of them depending on what we need. So. All right, and then the next one, which is the last of the basic pets that you get throughout, not being demonology, of course. Demonology has a special one that I'll go over in just a minute, but the last one that all warlocks get is the succubus, or their buffed up version is the Shivara. Mostly these ones are used within PvP realms and everything like that, because they do have a very unique ability. They go invisible, and they can charm enemies and basically turn them. Oh, it looks like we've got a question from Izzy. Destruction warlocks. Destruction warlocks do use, or can use both the beholder or the imp. The stronger of the two of them right now is the, well, like I said, it was debated if it's the imp or the observer, but mostly destruction warlocks do hold on to the observer in raid scenarios. Yeah, demonology ones do mostly use their unique pet, which is actually our next one on here.
Also, I was wondering, do the old pets disappear once you use the Grimoire of Supremacy? So, in other words,
yes.
Okay, so your old Fell Hunter turns into the Beholder then, once you have it.
Yeah, you can't summon your Beholder when you have, or not Beholder. You can't summon your Fell Hunter when you have the Grimoire active.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I just remember using the succubus used to be the bane of PvP, because you get all set up, the next thing you know, they'll just be like, you'll be charmed. You're like, no.
Yeah. Okay. So what we've got on here right now is the demonology specific pet. It's, I believe, called the Fell Hunter, or not Fell Hunter, but the Fell Reaver. And then its updated version is, oh, now the name eludes me.
Is it the Fell Guard and then the Fell Reaver?
It's the Fell Guard and the Wrath Guard. There we go.
Oh, okay, Wrath Guard. There you go.
And they operate the same thing. They're just a melee-based pet. They'll react kind of like the like any ferocity hunter pet. They'll get behind the enemy and they'll just melee back there. They do have a AoE type ability that allows them to spin in one spot and do a lot of AoE damage. But it's
like having your own warrior with you, because they do like the Blade Storm when they spin around.
Yes, indeed. But you don't see them very often. I don't see a lot of demonology warlocks out there outside of leveling.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed. Like whenever I played a warlock a while ago, I've since deleted my higher level warlock. But what I did is I used the Felguard a lot, but I ended up finding out that the Blueberry was a much better tank than the Felguard was. And so it pretty much, the Felguard was more of, if I wanted to run around on PvP and do some damage on PvP as a demonology, I would use the Felguard. But usually just running around basic, it was Blueberry all the way to most of the way up. So that's what I found out with it. So I think that's maybe some of it, is just sort of they don't have a lot of health compared to the Blueberry. The Blueberry seems to be able to take a lot more of a beating than the Felguard can, but the Felguard definitely dishes out a lot more DPS.
Yeah, it's the difference between the two of them is pretty close to what you would normally use, like a ferocity pet for hunters versus a protection pet. I'm forgetting what the word is for it, but it's
yeah.
The blueberry is definitely your tank in most situations, whereas this your Wrathguard or Felguard is gonna be your high DPS melee. All right, and then on the next one here, it's the first of two pets. They actually label them as guardians as opposed to pets in the spell book, but they're summonable pets. They have a 10-minute cooldown on there, and the first one is the Terror Guard or Doom Guard. He's a caster type guardian. He'll just come down for, I believe it is, yep.
There's one there on the screen. We have one there on our screens.
Oh.
Someone's.
There we go.
Looks like Gridlock has pulled up her Terror Guard.
Yeah, he'll stay out and active for about a minute, and he'll stand there and cast a Doom Bolt at at whatever you have it selected as your target, and that is specific because he has to be you have to have an enemy targeted when you cast him.
Yeah. To
get him to come out, otherwise he won't be able to drop in there.
Okay, he just focuses on that one target the whole time, and if that target dies, then you have to retarget him on something else.
Yes.
Okay.
And now the second of these two summonable guardians is the Abyssal or Infernal. The Infernal is definitely the lower of the two, like the lesser version of the Abyssal. We actually have one on the screen as well. It looks to be Bacon's. They're an AoE type guardian. When they come down, they land and they create a crater in there that stuns anything in that area for 2 seconds, and then it continues to walk around and do AoE type damage around a specific area, as well as melee your current target.
Always nice to have.
Yeah, there's definitely times for each of them.
Oh, and someone just tossed out their Abyssal, it looks like.
We got two Infernals on there.
Yeah, the Infernals.
We've got two Infernals running around it. And then here is my Abyssal.
Very cool.
All right, and to answer that grid, I am actually going to go into why many of my different spells are green later on in the presentation. It is a quest line that I've completed myself and that I do believe others are working on as well. But it turns a lot of your spells and pets to green as opposed to what they normally are colored as.
And then they all fall apart.
Yeah, and then after a minute they do just fall apart.
Like your zombies for Death Knights.
Mm-hmm. All right, so right now what we're going to do is I'm going to start talking about some very specific spells in the arsenal for the Warlocks, the first of which is the Soulstone. It is a battle res type spell. It will count towards the battle res counter for the raid encounter that you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on if you have, like I think it's 3 for 25 and 25 man, and then 1 for a 10 man.
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
But they do double as a preventative measure too. If you do if you know somebody's probably going to die during an encounter, you can always place it on them beforehand to give them that battle res when they need it. It does have a 15-minute cooldown when you do it that way.
So that's why when we were reading last night and I had my squishy tank, you kept people kept giving me one of these soul stones?
Indeed, indeed. That is why they do it.
It was also one of the things like in PvP you have to watch out for, because it's all of a sudden popping back up after you kill them. So that way you can go ahead and do that. And I looked at my spell book, and it looks like my little warlock will get it at level 18.
The next one on here is the summoning ritual. It is what most people know as the TV that pops out of the ground. It basically allows you to bring party members or guild members, in this case, to a specific location like we are sitting in here now. I do believe several of us did get summoned up here so we could all be in the same spot for this presentation. So.
It's also one of the main reasons why Warlocks are now the most popular class to have for Ordos and for Celestials.
Indeed. Can you go back 1 second there? Just as a quick note. Quick note on that one. It does take two other people to summon the TV, and it requires one other person to click on the portal once you open it towards another person. All right, and then the next one on the slide there is our Soulwells. It is our rock candy. Everybody loves the rock candy in this group of people.
It's addictive, you know.
I do believe it is a lifesaver in many cases. And as you can see, there are some cosmetic differences between the normal one and this one. It's a glyph. It just gives the Soulwell an interesting glow to it.
There's also some images there in the green smoke as well.
Oh yes, I believe it's like a kind of a skull image in there, like a escaping soul of sorts.
A lot of fun with the Lock-Rocks.
I lost my spot. All right, the next one, and we're gonna have a little bit of fun with this one. It's our demonic gateway. It provides an interesting way to move parties and raid members around within an encounter, or just when you're having fun waiting for an encounter to start. Excuse me, sorry. It does take a few seconds to cast, but once you do, you get these nifty little portals that appear on there and start generating charges. And it does take 15 minutes or it gives you a 15-minute cooldown on your buff, and you can transport in between the two locations on the map, or not the map, the field right there. Keep in mind though, when you do use it, you get a 1.5-minute debuff on you. It used to be a lot shorter when they first introduced the lock gates, but they have increased it up to the 1.5-minute mark.
That's kind of like, sounds like it was like kind of what they do with the potions. Initially, potions were like 30 seconds, and now you can't do a potion more than a minute.
Yeah. So I do want to take a second here and allow people the opportunity to play with these lock gates for a moment, and we can also take some questions while we're playing around with these, if anybody has them.
Now, one thing you did say is that I do notice that you sort of get whenever you port through the gates, you get a shadowy outcome that looks like it might help you sort of detract from being aggroed. But I do know in the dungeons that basically one of the things that happens is that you do end up getting, like I said, I've seen plenty of people aggro bosses by accident by hopping in the lock gate and porting through the boss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, part of what they created with the lock gates is it is an aggro drop or an aggro reducer if you're in the middle of a fight, and it will also prevent you from aggroing other, mobs if you're in the middle of, or not in the middle of a fight, but ready to start a fight. You can go right over the top of a boss if he's there.
Then maybe they're putting their their ending point a little too close to the boss.
Yeah.
Got some people jumping around in the lock gates.
Just as a quick note, though, there is an item that you can buy. It has caused a lot of. It can cause some problems if you're not aware, if you don't remember you have it or not. It's an item that you can purchase at. I don't actually have it on the slideshow, but it is an item called the Gateway Control Stone. You can buy it inside the. I believe it's only available inside the Siege of Orgrimmar raid.
Mm-hmm.
It basically replaces a glyph for Warlocks and gives other people the ability to just walk up to the gate and it will shoot them to the other side right away without having to click on the gate.
Cool. So we do have one question that says, can you speak a little bit more to the aggro dropping aspect of using the gates? This is from Not Again, saying, I think it used to drop all aggro, but it seems to only reduce aggro now. Correct?
Correct. Yes. It used to drop all of the aggro in there, and that's how a lot of folks were using it, especially with certain encounters, to just to either like hassle some people or troll some people in raids, because they'd run up, aggro something, wipe all aggro, and port out, or but they fixed it so that now all it does is just lower your aggro just a slight amount. It's not as powerful as some of your other abilities like Soul Shatter, but it does provide a slight aggro drop for you.
Let's say it looks like it's a lock playground.
It does indeed. There is a lot of lock gates going on around. And I do see a question here from Grid. If you place two lock gates together, let's see here. If two locks put up two gates, and can you use both of them or only one? No. If you step through the gate, whichever one that you step through right away will be the one that you move through. It won't let you, if there's a beginning of one gate on top of the ending of another gate, it's not going to jump you the other gate because of that debuff that comes into play there. I believe there is one set up like that down at the shrine right now. I'm kind of hopping around on it, but it won't port you simultaneously to the other one due to that debuff that occurs.
Yeah, and also the debuff keeps you from going through another lock gate. So it's not specific to a lock gate. It's just any lock gate you can't go past. You can't go through until the debuff's gone.
Correct. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and everybody can keep playing around with the lock gates, but we'll carry on as well. All right. The next one on here is it's a personal teleport. It is called Demonic Circle Teleport, or a Demonic Circle Summon. There's two different spells, but one of them creates the portal for you. The other one uses your portal. It is only a personal teleporter, and like I said in here, I do use it on several fights. For example, on our fights with the Fallen Protectors, I'll put it in the middle of the middle of our circle for the infernal strikes, and if I'm outside of that area when it occurs, or if I'm targeted by that ability and I'm outside of the area, I can just use that ability to teleport myself back to my
original spot there.
Yeah, the original spot.
Yeah, I've seen these a lot. I mean, especially I've seen some people get really nasty with them in arenas as well as in the PvP areas, getting used to being able to bounce them back and forth and having a really good time hiding the spots. So, the one example I gave you was in Warsaw Gulch, where someone was able to go ahead and put their teleport on the top of the roof, and then they were able to teleport themselves immediately up to the top of the roof if things went badly for them down below.
Yeah. It does provide an interesting way of getting out of certain situations. Another one that I have that I use it on frequently is the Iron Juggernaut during his siege mode phase. Now we all know siege mode because it turns us, ends up shooting us all out in a, the direction as far as during the pulse. But what I've noticed is with this ability, if I time it just right after the pulse hits, I can basically make myself not go anywhere. I can keep.
Oh, that's true.
And it becomes very handy. It cuts down on my delay in between my DPS bursting and everything like that. It does have a 40-yard range, meaning that you can move quite a distance away from your original spot, but it does have a 30-second cooldown. So with the siege mode usage in there, I can only get it on 2 of the 3 siege modes, and it has to be the first and the third one.
Okay.
Because otherwise it'll be on cooldown during those other phases. And yes, Izzy, it does have to be within line of sight. If you're outside of it and you try to use it and you're not within line of sight of it, it will prevent you from teleporting. All right.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, it provides some very interesting utility for.
Yeah, I play mostly warrior, so this is a lot like our heroic leap. We can just leap from place to place. The only difference is that you actually have a visual designation of where you're going to land.
Yes, it does have a. It only lasts, like each teleport pad essentially lasts for 6 minutes.
Okay.
But it'll stay there for that 6 minutes unless you move it. The summoning capability of it has, I believe, a short cooldown. But you do have to be able to replace it if need be. All right. So the next ability I'm going to speak on is it's just a raid-wide buff. It gives you 10% extra stamina and extra spell power. And it does stack on top of, or it does not stack, sorry, it overwrites a priest's stamina buff as well as the spell power buff from a mage.
And that's why a lot of people do prefer the Dark Intent, especially when you don't have a mage in the group.
And it's all depending on group composition.
That's a very useful stat.
Oh, looks like Izzy just tried it with the shrine, the line of sight, and it looks like it may have been removed, the line of sight requirement for it. So I do stand corrected, and thank you very much for that, Izzy. All right, the next ability of note is our the Dark Soul abilities. They are different for each specialization of Warlock, and they do provide different increases or buffs for you. They do have a 2-minute cooldown, and the first of which is the one I use on mine because I'm a Destruction Warlock, is the Instability version. It's the one on the far left. It gives me an increase of 30% critical strike chance for the 20 seconds that it's active. The second of which is Dark Soul Knowledge. It's my off-spec, which is Demonology. It provides an additional 30% mastery for the 20-second duration. And then the last one, which is for Affliction, it increases your spell haste by 30% for 20 seconds.
So you have Instability, Knowledge, and then Misery.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And typically you go ahead and you would try to do your Instability in conjunction with another critical strike. Like, for instance, we talked about the Warrior's Skull Banner, where you get the plus 25% crit.
Yes, I do time my my use of the Dark Souls for when Chris yells out the call for his Skull Banner, because it does stack with it and increases my critical strike chance quite a bit while those are both active. And being a Destruction Warlock, I have a lot of critical strike chance, and it definitely helps out a lot with my various abilities within there.
Cool. So that was Dark Soul. Next up, talent trees.
Yeah, next up is our talents. I'll go through, like, there's a picture right there of all of the abilities that you can use on there, and I'll go through each tier individually here in just a moment. The first tier is your level 15 tier. I've kind of named it as your health regeneration tier. The first ability on there, the one on the left-hand side of the screen, is the one that I use on all of my specializations. Mostly because it doesn't require other spells or anything like that, and it's just it gives me a chance to regenerate some mana while I'm doing that if I need a quick health boost. It's the Dark Regeneration. It restores 30% of my life and my pet's life, and it increases all healing received by 25% over that 12-second period. The second one on there is Soul Leech. It is a very long spell, so you will forgive the large picture on there. The reason it is so long is because it changes based off of your specialization. So the first there, that spell reads as your Shadow Bolts, Soulfire, Fell Flame, Chaos Bolt, and various other spells now give you you and your pet a shield that absorbs a percentage of damage. I've used this in the past for a lot of different things. The shield is quite handy for solo encounters because you're doing a lot of damage and you're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
So having that extra ability to protect yourself is definitely useful, but I don't use it, almost at all because of the, having that instant cast Dark Regeneration, like I had mentioned on there, is very handy. And I can show you the Dark Regeneration since it is my current active one if you want to switch over to my screen for just a moment.
Sure. We got you.
All right. It's very reminiscent for me of the Soulwell edition. Mm-hmm. It's just like a bunch of it's like a bunch of souls coming out of the ground and they're regenerating me.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
All right, and the last ability on this tier of talent is the Harvest Life. Now, they've changed the Harvest Life since they initially introduced it. Mm-hmm. It used to hit everybody around in a certain area And so it increased your health drain, or your life drain spells ability by a lot, because it would grab everything around you. But they've since reduced it, and it just increases the effectiveness of that health drain. Or drain life spell, excuse me. Alright, the second tier, your level 30 tier, is for crowd control. The first one on there is Demonic Breath. It is a cone style ability that will shoot directly out in front of you and then at a slight angle on either side. It just reduces the movement speed of your targets within that cone shape. It's very reminiscent of the Cone of Cold for mages, and it's used very similarly to it as well. The next one is Mortal Coil. They used to have that ability as an actual usable ability, or something similar to it. It used to be called Death Coil.
Yep.
But since they've removed that ability, they've put it back in using this one. That's what it really does. It makes them run away from you for 3 seconds, and it restores your maximum health. The last one on this tier is Shadow Fury. It is what I use. It's a area of effect stun. It's quite handy for creating an area where you need to have people stop moving for a little bit. I use it during our encounter with the Dark Shamans, actually, just to get those bloods to stop moving. Alright, the next one is Survivability and Shields. Soul Link, which is the first one, it says a passive ability. It gives you and your demon a shared health pool almost. 20% of your damage that you take is split to your demon. Additionally, though, it does regenerate you over time. It's just a passive, health regen. Sacrificial Pact. I used this particular ability when I was fighting in the final boss fight for the Green Fire spells, Questline, because it takes 25% of your current your demon's health, 25% of it, and it converts it into that sacrificed life into 400% times that for a shield for you.
Very cool. Yeah.
So it can be a very big shield if you have a very big demon.
Yeah.
And then the last one on here is Dark Bargain. It is what I use when I notice that I'm taking a lot of damage, because it prevents all damage for 8 seconds. But the downside of it is when that shield fades, you take 50% of that damage over another additional 8 seconds. So there is a trade-off. Yeah, it is very similar to Stagger for the monks.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right.
All right, Tier 4, which is your level 60 ability. It is for movement. The first of which is Blood Horror. It basically turns any physical hits against you into a way to get enemies to run away from you. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. It will, anytime you're hit by somebody or deals damage to you, it will make them run in horror for 4 seconds. But it only has 1 charge to it, and it has a 1-minute cooldown on there.
Mm-hmm.
Burning Rush. It's a unique one. I believe there's something similar to it with the mages, but I'm not 100% sure. But basically what it does is it drains your 4% of your health a second to increase your movement speed by an extra 50%.
Okay, yeah.
it does work very, very well to get you moving around the area, but it does cost that health, which healers don't like very much. The last of which, and the one I use, is Unbound Will. It purges all magic effects and movement impairing effects, or all effects that which would cause you to lose control of your character or demon. It's basically a get out of jail free card. And it saved my life several times in this. Alright, so now the two fun ones. The two fun ones. The first, it's your demon modification. Each of these abilities change how some of your demons work. The first one is the Grimoire of Supremacy, is what most Warlocks use these days. It changes all of your demons into these stronger versions of them, like we were looking at earlier. So any of those lower level demons that you have, they are no longer summonable, but instead they give you these stronger versions of them. So the Fell Imp, the Void Lord, the Shivara, and Observer, as well as the upgraded versions of the Guardians, the Abyssals and Terror Guard, and the Wrath Guard. The second one on there is the Grimoire of Service. As it sits there, it basically just gives you a second Warlock you can summon for 20 seconds.
Okay, so second pet you can bring in. Cool.
Yeah, it's just like a second pet. Your first one will remain after that 20-second cooldown, but or period of time, but it will give you the option to summon a second one.
Okay, you can choose which one you want. It's not based on the one you currently have out.
Yeah, you can choose whichever extra pet you'd like at that moment. If you need an extra tank, it works.
Okay, cool.
You can have 2 Voidwalkers up there, and they have a specific ability on each one of them. Like the Voidwalker I see there, it has immediately taunts your target when it's summoned. So.
And Grid has a question: are the Grimoires passive?
Yes. Well, 2 of them are. Or no, sorry, only 2 of them are active abilities. Okay. The Grimoire of Supremacy is a passive ability. It changes them forever. The other 2, on the other hand, are activatable. Grimoire of Service, it has a 2-minute cooldown on it, so it uses it. It'll use it for that one period of time, and then it'll be on cooldown for the next 2 minutes. The Grimoire of Sacrifice, the last one, it's a little bit different. So with the Sacrifice, what it does is it takes your current demon out there and sacrifices it, and gives you various buffs that go along with it. So it says here, you sacrifice your demon and gain one of its abilities, and it's what the ability that you gain is actually it'll be in this spot for your command demon spell. It's whatever you get for the command demon. That'll be your ability that you gain from the sacrificed pet.
Okay.
And it also increases your so it increases the damage done by your current single target spells. Gives you an health regeneration, and it does give some extra abilities on there. I haven't played around with this one too much. When I use it for my demonology or my destruction, and that's usually when I'm just don't want to control a demon for a little while.
It also seems really good during like a burn phase or during a time warp or something. It does looks like it lasts for an hour.
Yeah.
But it looks like it would work really well for like the burn phase of a boss whenever you're getting that last 20% or you're getting into the whenever your time warp is popped. It might be a good time to do that for Sacrifice.
Well, it's an active ability. It's got it lasts for an hour. So Like the ability itself has a 30-second cooldown, but it lasts, like the effects last for an hour, so you could have it as a buff on every time you get raised or die, something like that, and have it on you, so you have that extra ability. That one of the extra abilities that I've noticed, at least with destruction, is it gives my Chaos Bolt a dot that it applies to it. I mean, it's a short one. It doesn't give you a ton of extra DPS for it, but it does give you that damage over time spell. And then the last one on there for Tier 6, you're level 90, is just kind of a fun addition to it. The first one is the Archimonde's Darkness. It changes your Dark Soul abilities to have 2 charges before it starts a cooldown.
Cool.
That is actually the recommended by a lot of DPS sites out there for how they want you to increase your damage. It gives you great potential for burst damage in certain situations. The next one is Killjaden's Cunning. It's what I use. It basically allows you to move with one of your basic spells for each of the specs. It just allows to run and cast. The last is Manaroth's Fury. It increases the radius in which your AoE spells are cast on. So any of your big AoE spells, it increases their area of effect by 500%.
Very cool for an AoE fight. That'd be awesome.
It definitely gets to be really a very large area. I've played around with it a little bit for Rain of Fire, but it doesn't increase the damage or anything. Or it does increase your damage by 100%, but it's not a big enough increase to warrant for a lot of people.
You want to pull the whole room.
Yeah.
Very cool. So now on to specializations.
On to the specializations. Alright, so let's see here. The first one I'm going to go over really briefly here is destruction. Mostly because it's what I use, and it's what I'm most familiar with. Alright, so first off, what we're going to do is with each of the various specializations, you get a new secondary resource. All 3 of them have a different secondary resource. So for destruction, you get Burning Embers. And basically, with that, the only way to generate these are through your Incinerate ability or your Fell Flame ability. They generate slowly over time. When you're casting them, the Fell Flame actually gives you quite a bit more in there, and that's how you actually have to cast. It's the only thing that it costs to cast your Chaos Bolt or your Shadow Burn, which is a later on in the fight sort of ability. And if you can turn your attention over to the UI display for me, it changes the appearance of your Warlock the higher amounts of Burning Embers you have. For me, since I have the Green Fire ability, it appears that I am on fire while I have that. Full Burning Embers. Alright, so the main rule of thumb with Warlocks is always have your dots ticking. Always, always, always have your dots ticking on whatever amount or whatever enemies you have in front of you. So for a single target spell, it's just going to keep your dots going and just let them go. Let them tick. It's not so much of a big deal with destruction because we only have 1. And likewise with demonology too. There's only really 1 spell that it does damage over time for demonology. As far as masteries go for destruction, what it does for you for mastery is it increases the effectiveness of your burning embers consuming spells by a percentage on there. The base percent is, I believe, 24%, and then it just exponentially goes up from there. I myself have a mastery of 106%, so my chaos bolts range from anywhere from 500,000 damage to over 1 million.
And it's fun watching those numbers pop up too.
It is. Another spell, in particular for destruction, is a spell called Havoc. It gives you the ability to. I wish I had a picture of this. Honestly, it gives you the ability to cast your Chaos Bolts or your single target abilities on two enemies at the same time. Burning Embers really quick here, and I'll show that.
Yeah, we have your screen showing, so they can see your screen. So, oh, very cool.
Yes. All right. Now that isn't the only ability I have, or that Destruction Warlocks have, that can give them good AoE abilities. The second of which is actually called Fire and Brimstone. Mm-hmm. Now this one you have to be a little bit careful with, because every one of your spells, your basic spells, turns into an AoE spell, and it costs Burning Embers to cast. So it's usually a spell that I use when I'm going to be hitting a lot of enemies in the area, as well as I just lost my train of thought.
Oh.
Okay, so with Fire and Brimstone, you've got to be able to maximize your ability to create Burning Embers as well as use them at the same time. So it's usually something I use when we're fighting, anywhere from 5 to 10 enemies at the same time, because I can generate Burning Embers just as fast as I can use them. So, I'm sure many of you have seen the output increase from, looking for raid groups and mm-hmm. everything like within those, just because of that. All right, so the next one I'm going to talk about here is the next specialization I'm going to talk about here is Affliction. Mm-hmm. Do we have a Affliction Warlock in the area? The two most popular specs right now are Demonology and Destruction. So Affliction is not a.
We do have one, but we're getting them in right now. So.
Okay.
But yeah, you can definitely go ahead and move forward onto Demonology if you want.
Yeah.
And then once our Affliction lock comes in, we'll switch over to them.
Okay, I will switch over to my Demonology specialization really quick here. So Demonology, their second resource is called Demonic Fury. You get, the potential to create up to 1,000 Demonic Fury. And the way you generate that is just by casting your normal spells. It generally will generate over time, and once you have a good percentage of it, then the way you expend that Demonic Fury is actually through turning into a demon yourself. And I've seen a couple Demonology Warlocks running around here that have switched in there. I will be doing the same here as soon as I generate enough Demonic Fury. Oh, it looks like I've got a question here really quick from Bacon. He asks, which of the base Destro spells do you like to pair best with Fire and Brimstone? I use, my initial one that I use right when I cast Fire and Brimstone is Conflagrate. It's an AoE, slow on there, and it gives you the it gives you an instant boost to your Burning Embers right away. And then I follow it up with just Incinerates, 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 because you can hit every single one of the enemies within a 10-yard radius, and the last one that I would suggest every time that you're using your ability or your fire is Rain of Fire, because your Rain of Fire will also bolster some more of your Burning Embers and give you a little bit more as you go, and it will further help you create more lengthy encounters with Fire and Brimstone. Okay, so I've generated 1,000 Demonic Fury here, and what Demonic Fury is used for, like I said earlier, is it changes a lot of your basic abilities when you turn into a demon. It changes a lot of your basic abilities into demon-specific ones. The spell in particular that I'm talking about to change yourself into a demon is Metamorphosis. We have a couple full-fledged demons running around here, including Wakante, and I've gone ahead and changed into a demon myself. That changes a lot of your basic spells into more damaging spells, like your Corruption. It changes it into a Curse of Doom. And it hits for a lot harder, and it does last for a minute as opposed to just the 35 seconds or 40 seconds that you've got there. Another one that changes is your Shadow Bolt. It changes it into a Touch of Chaos. Each of these spells do use Demonic Fury, as well as you lose Demonic Fury over time as you're within your demon form. The last spell that is changed in there is the Fell Flame. It changes it into a Void Ray. It just shoots out just a ray of magic.
It's your laser.
Yeah. Oh, and then one of the other spells that does change is your Curse of Elements. Mm-hmm. Changes it into an Aura of Elements. So it's a 2-minute aura that you project around you that increases all magic damage taken by 5% on enemies, excuse me.
Very cool. Yeah, with Demonology, you focus more on your pet, obviously. It's a lot like Beast Mastery with the Hunters, and so you do a lot of work there. So that's what I always find interesting, is looking for going ahead and looking at choosing which spec you like and which one forms to your playstyle. Right now, as you mentioned earlier, Destruction seems to be the highest DPS one. Affliction seems to be getting a little bit of a remake, and we're seeing a little bit more Affliction locks that are out there. But mostly it seems to be most people are doing Demonology or Destruction or Demonology, I think. And our Affliction Warlock is up and running. If you want to cut over to them.
Okie dokie. Let's see here. So, Affliction. Its main. It's all dot based. I mean, damage over time. You have 5 or 6 regular dots that you apply over the course of a fight, and then your final one, which increases your output on your damage, is called Malefic Grasp.
Mm-hmm.
It uses the secondary resource of soul shards, and you can burn these soul shards using a couple different spells in particular. Let's see here. I'm looking for the actual spells here. 1 second. You can. One of the spells that you use to burn your soul shards is Haunt. It's within the regular rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Another one that you can use for it is, or use with it, is the Soul Burn. What that does is it gives you different extra abilities on each of your spells that you can cast with Soul Burn. So the Curse spell, when you use Soul Burn within or in tandem with your Cursed spell, which is, I believe, Agony, it curses everything within 10 yards. Seed of Corruption, that's the next one. Generally it's an AoE type spell, but with the Soul Burn attached to it, what it does is it instantly afflicts all of the enemies within the detonation with corruption, like a brand new set of corruption on there. Another one that it allows you to do is Health Funnel. It increases the health regen for your pet by a lot more. I believe it increases it by 140% and also reduces the damage taken by your demon by 30%. Demonic Circle, when you combine that with Soulstone, it increases your movement speed when you teleport. It increases your movement speed by 50% for 8 seconds and makes you immune to snare and impairing effects. The last one that Soulburn can affect is Soul Swap. Now, I haven't talked about Soul Swap yet because what it does is it will basically pull all of your damage over time spells off of an enemy and allow you to transfer them to a new one. What it does with Soulburn is it instantly applies all of your damage over time spells to a new enemy without removing them first from a previous one. Now, the only way to generate these soul shards, which are used and consumed by Soulburn and these other abilities, the only way to get them is by a proc. What the proc is for? It's called Nightmare or Nightfall.
Mm-hmm.
It basically just refunds a soul shard right then and there. The other way you can generate them is through Drain Soul. Now, that is a channeled ability that just will increase some damage, as well as just give you the option or give you the opportunity to generate soul shards.
Yeah, and that's the thing is with the soul shards, this is probably the one class I think that it really brought back. It really sort of stayed the same throughout the changes, because the traditional Warlock was you had to use your Drain Soul to get the soul shards, because everything was driven off of soul shards. And what they've done lately is they've gone ahead and with this expansion, definitely they've gotten rid of soul shards for everybody except for Affliction, and everyone else has different pieces. So like as you said, that the demonologists now have Demonic Fury that's generated by different aspects. They do the Destruction. Warlocks now have the Embers. And so Affliction's kind of interesting because it's still sort of that old school, you got to suck the life out of someone to get your soul shard, and then be able to consume that and carry those soul shards with you. So that's, to me, what's interesting about Affliction is it's always sort of that old school model still that you have. You have your 4 soul shards you run around with, and you're always trying to capture them. I remember when you actually had to make them. I remember you had to have the extra bags just to hold all of them in your bags.
Yeah, you had to carry for a raid in particular on when you had to have a bag, like at least a 20 or a 16 slot bag full of soul shards.
Well, exactly, and they had a special bag just for them, just for warlocks. You could make them a special bag, and then I remember trying to help our warlocks, trying to go ahead and gather up soul shards and all the poor little animals that are around the entrance to whatever dungeon or raid we're going to go into, running around there and trying to help them collect up their soul shards. Like 20 minutes before the fight was supposed to start. So I can remember that. Good old days. So that's one thing about Afflictions is there, that nostalgia there.
And speaking of little nostalgic things that they've changed about Warlocks is your Doomguard and Abyssal summons. They used to get one of those pets, you actually had to summon it and enslave it.
Yes.
And one of the interesting things about, like, say, the Infernal is you had to have 5 people help you summon it. Or you and 4 other people, sorry.
Yeah.
And it would fall down from the sky when you finished summoning, and you had to enslave it, and you could have it as long as you could keep it enslaved.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Doomguard, on the other hand, that one was a little bit more fun. At least I thought it was fun. But while you're summoning it, once you finished the summon, it would kill one of your party members.
Yes, it had to sacrifice one of the party members.
Yeah, and it would be random. It could even be the Warlock. There were times when you would have a group of people summoning these things in like auction houses, low-level auction houses, and they would come down and kill like the Warlock, and when the Warlock didn't enslave them, it would run around and kill everything else.
Yes, so attacking everything else.
So it was just kind of a little tidbit from back in the day.
Oh, yes.
And a little bit of a look to the future, though, with those 2 demons. Actually, those 2 demons are going to become, at level 100, they are going to become full-fledged pets.
Ah, very cool.
For the Warlords of Draenor. Alright. So, the last little bit here, I'm actually going to cover a little bit about the Greenfire quest. And if we want to, we can start moving over to the Island of Thunder if people want to try to get this item that drops over there. It is a legendary rare spawn, or it drops from the rare spawns out there, is a legendary book called the Sealed Tome of the Lost Legion. It has about a 2% drop rate off of Goda, the giant turtle out there, and about a 1.5% drop rate out of every other rare spawn in that island. That's just how the quest starts. It is quite a lengthy quest line, but a lot of the area, the area that you're most likely to hang out at the most is going to be Outland. So if you see Warlocks, like high-level Warlocks hanging out in Outland, usually they're working on this quest. And I'll let's see here. If we got a group of folks that want to go out there, we can try our luck to see if we can get a couple of these books for people.
Looks like Grid is looking for it, and she started flying out to the Isle of Thunder. And I don't know if the others want to come around or not, but I'd say probably start heading over to the Isle of Thunder.
Yep. So I'm not going to go into too many details about the actual quest line in particular. I am going to speak a little bit on the last part of it, which is the entire quest culminates into this not so leisurely trek through the Black Temple in Outland. Now, Blizzard was definitely thinking ahead when they did this. It is, when you enter the Black Temple, it is a solo instance, a solo queue scenario. So, as much as I wanted to bring extra help in there with me, I was not able to do so.
Yeah, it looks like we have a lot of lower level warlocks in our group here, so that just seems to be the what we're running into. But the grid's on our way. I don't know if you're going to head over there or not.
Yeah, we can, and I'm more than happy to help. Grind out these tomes for people. I go out there and run around on some of my littles just to see if I can get one. And if I get them, I usually throw them in a guild bank or my bank until somebody needs one. I have given several to folks, including Z. I know he has the book. So.
Oh, very cool. Well, I think really the only one right now who's in a position to get one is probably Grid. I'm pretty sure Nada probably already has one. But you guys can head over there. I think the rest of us will just sort of stay around here and watch the feed. So you can go ahead and head on over.
Okay. Good. So the trek through the Black Temple, in particular, while I was doing that, I noticed. I mean, it is extremely hard. It is not an easy venture by any means. I think the main reason they created it was to get players interested in their warlocks again, and it definitely did so because they forced you to learn how to think about your spells in different ways. There are many times where I had to dig through my my spell book to actually figure out how to get through this instance on my own.
Well, exactly. It also reminded me a lot of from what I've heard from everyone else, is it seems a lot like the Legendary Daggers quest for rogues, and it also seems a little bit like the trials, the Celestial Trials for a lot of other people, how it really forces you to look back at your class and really sort of relearn things you may have forgotten. Yes. And that's one of the goals that Blizz has said, is that they really want people to have to go back and look and see what the changes are, because they're not looking for you to do the same old. They're trying to freshen things up, and they have changed a little pieces here and there about the different spells that are out there.
Yes. And I'm seeing it here. I'm reading what Shammai has been saying here. He is actually on the final encounter, and the final encounter is a beast on its own.
Mm-hmm.
You are faced off against a Kenrithad Ebonlock. He is a full-blown demon. He's very reminiscent of the demon form that you get with your demonology specialization.
Mm-hmm.
He is big. He's very green. He looks like I did when I was in my demon form. And he has a whopping 31.4 million health. And he will use a combination of spells from all three Warlock specs. Now, this, like many other encounters that we've noticed, especially with the Siege of Orgrimmar and everything like that, it's not actually dependent on how high your gear score is. Rather, it's dependent on the knowledge of your class and the knowledge of mechanics that will get you through this particular fight. I I'm going to give you a couple tips. I'm not going to go into the fight mechanics in depth because there's a lot there. There are videos out there that you can look at, as well as other like walkthroughs and the like for it. But from what I found, there are a couple of little tricks that I've picked up on that really helped me. The first of which is a glyph, the glyph of enslaved demons. It will cut down your casting time for your enslaved demon spell by a ton, and you need that for that particular fight. You do not get to use your regular demon within this fight. So during the fight, what it is the main boss here, his first thing he does is he summons a pit lord, and you can't deal with the pit lord. You actually have to enslave him and use him as your pet.
Ah, okay.
What I would recommend if you are going to go through this is definitely use the Grimoire of Sacrifice, because that gives you that extra buff, and it gives you the ability to, retain a lot of your extra damage that you would be normally getting from your demon, which you're not because you've got your pit lord there. Now, the last thing I've got on here is that there is no actual time limit for the fight.
Okay.
What he does, about 30 seconds into the fight, he will cast a curse on you called the Curse of Ultimate Doom. It's a 7-minute debuff on you. Once it expires, it will explode, dealing 500 million damage to you.
That's nice.
Overall, the good news on it is that it is a curse effect. So if you have a purification potion,
yes.
you can purify it, saving yourself some time, because the debuff will reset.
Okay.
When he reapplies it, because he will reapply it about a second and a half after you dispel it, but it starts that 7 minutes over again. But just as a note, while that is handy, I never need it. I never needed the purification potion because I either never made it to the time period, or I killed him.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and all in all, that questline tests your ability and knowledge of the Warlock class. You will use all sorts of spells that you didn't even. You'll have to use spells that you didn't really know very well, and you'll have to get used to them in interesting ways to complete the quest. But the reward for the quest I found is rewarding in itself.
It's worth it.
Yeah, it's worth it. It changes all sorts of different abilities to green fire equivalents.
Okay. Yep.
So your incinerate is green. Your immolate is green. Your conflagrate turns to a green explosion on the enemies. Your rain of fire is green. Your demon form and demonology is green. All sorts of fun stuff is modified in there. One in particular that I just found out the other day is your Warlock specific mounts. They turn green.
Oh. Oh, we have a guildie who likes everything blue, so as long as we have, we figure we have someone who likes everything green.
Yep. And although it is extremely challenging to do it, I suggest that everybody at least try to go through it, because it is it's a good challenge. So, yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm sure you and Grid, and I think a few others are going to go ahead and run around there on Timeless Isles. The rest of us will, I guess, have to get back to leveling our Warlocks as we try to catch up. So thank you very much, and thanks everyone for watching. So this has been Inevitable Destructors, and thanks again, Kevin, for sharing with us the Lock-a-Palooza and everything you know about locks.
Yeah, and if anybody does have any further questions, I'd be more than happy to stick around and answer them after the live stream is ended, of course. So
definitely. Thank you very much.